So there are the cars making their way back into the pit then. So the free practice session hasn't exactly started yet. The clock hasn't started ticking. They just did their practice race start because it's a new format for the start this weekend. Instead of the formation lap, they will be starting 3 rows behind their initial grid slot, and the formation lap will be essentially driving forward 50 to 100 meters and then getting the race underway, which makes sense. A formation lap in these sorts of cars, not absolutely vital.
No, not vital, and I think it took away from the show because the drivers, quite rightly, are using as little energy as they possibly can, and it took so long that it was tough for the people at home watching and the people in the grandstands. So it's a bit more challenging for the drivers because they've said, oh, we're not going to be able to get the heat and the brakes that we need and stuff like that, and so there's always that compromise, the show against integrity and stuff like that, but they'll figure it out as they normally do.
There is Jaime Alguersuari getting strapped into his Virgin car, the man who struggled really in Beijing, not with pace but with car issues, and ended up finishing the race in 11th position, which was the last of the runners that took the line. So that wasn't, well, the last of the runners on the lead lap anyway. And there is Nick Heidfeld, who obviously was involved in that spectacle because it looked like he had the move made.
I think he did. I think he absolutely nailed it there, and he planned it to perfection, but it didn't come off. I think at this point he's probably just glad he's in one piece and he's still here. So yeah, he's going to be. He seems to have figured out how to use the power available and the technique for driving these Formula E cars. All the drivers are talking about momentum, and they're working so hard in the corners with the relative lack of downforce. They've got the dual purpose tyre, wet and dry. The cars are sliding around a lot, but these guys are absolutely working hard to gain any fraction of a mile an hour through the middle of the corner. So again, that's why we're going to see some mistakes made.
Joined the Andretti team, replacing Charles Pic, but he's done plenty of running in the Formula E car. He did a couple of the sessions at Donington, and I think he did the race sim as well there, so he knows what he's doing behind the wheel, and quite an exciting young prospect. He's now the youngest driver in Formula E at just 20 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Andretti has got a lot of confidence in Matti's ability, quite rightly so. He's won at every stage in the ladder. He's been over in the Mazda Road to Indy in the US and did Indy Lights this season, and look and read between the lines, I think Michael's trying to run an Indy Lights program again and would put Matti back in the car. So he's definitely grooming him, and you know, Michael's got a lot of experience, and he's good at picking out young drivers and then helping to educate them. And you know, Matti's obviously got that family pedigree, but forget all that, he's got a load of talent.
And there is another newcomer for the weekend. We were just looking at Antonio Felix da Costa, the driver who didn't race in the opening round in Beijing, but is now here partnering Catherine Legg at Amlin Aguri. And there's a look at the Drivers' Championship after the first race of the season in Beijing. Lucas de Grassi, 25 points at the top, and that's the points he got for the victory. Frank Montani second, Sam Bird third. You'll see Nico Prost there in 9th place because he picked up 3 points for claiming pole position, and Takuma Sato in 11th place because he got 2 points for setting the fastest lap of the race right towards the end of that run in Beijing. So this session will get underway in about 40 seconds time, and there is Jarno Trulli at the wheel of his Trulli Formula E team car, and they had a difficult start to the season. Couldn't get off the line in the end, Jarno Trulli in Beijing, and he really wanted to be competing more towards the front, but I'm expecting to see more from him and Michele Ceruti as the season progresses. And in about 30 seconds, free practice will be getting underway. An hour and 15 minutes will be the session, and oh no, sorry, it'll be 3 minutes now before the session gets underway. It'll start at 7:50 in theory, as we see Lucas de Grassi, the championship leader, many people's favourite going into the race in Beijing, but he was pretty honest, wasn't he, after the race, saying, I didn't really deserve to win that.
No, he definitely sort of alluded to the fact that there was an incident in the two cars ahead, and you know, he got a bit lucky there. But one thing you learn as a driver, there's those races you're going to lose, and there's those races you're going to win, you know, and it eventually evens itself out. So yeah, he's got a lot of experience in the car, and was a bit upset yesterday. They were talking about this, the change in the regeneration regulation, and the amount the cars are allowed to regenerate. They've brought that down by half. So I think the app guys were a little upset because they've done a lot of work between China and now with under the assumption that they'll be regenerating at a certain rate. They've now cut it in half, the championship. He was a little upset, wasn't he?
Absolutely. And the cars now making their way out of the garages then. That is Matty Brabham in the blue and white Andretti car heading towards the exit of the pits. You can see Michael Andretti there making his way out into the pit lane as well. Matty Brabham, the only man to have made his way to the end of the pit lane at the moment, with about a minute to go in theory before the session starts. Still not a confirmed session start time at 7:50. Jaime Alguersuari, the Spaniard, the youngest ever Formula 1 driver when he made his debut at the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix. And there is Nico Prost, son of Alain Prost, who runs the e.dams-Renault car and team for he and Sebastian Buemi. And e.dams, right from the offset, looked like a very, very strong outfit. And there is the view down to the President's Palace down in the back there. President Najib Razak, who will be here later on. And here's a look at this Putrajaya city that was built really as from the top down as being a eco-friendly city. And they were, when they built this city, they made sure there was plenty of room for green spaces. They even legislated how much green space there had to be in the city.
It's stunning,
and
isn't it?
It is really impressive, isn't it?
Absolutely stunning. Great backdrop for a car race. So, yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Putra means prince, and Jaya translates as success. And,
really?
Yeah.
I've learned something.
Exactly. I'm fluent in Malay.
Good
As we see one of the many lakes and rivers that surrounds the city, and there is the big mosque at the, well, one of many mosques in Putrajaya, and it really has been a stunning place for this racing to get underway, because I mean it's a new city and not many people had heard of Putrajaya, frankly. I know when I got the calendar and saw Putrajaya, where's that? And we're about 30 kilometers south of Kuala Lumpur, but this is the home of the Malaysian government essentially, and as I say, that's the Prime Minister's house in the background, and it really is a spectacular setting for this race.
They've also done a really good job. The layout of the track, the infrastructure of the whole event has been first class. Really, really impressed with that. And yeah, I think that these guys have set the standard.
Well, apologies for this delay, and we'll be getting a free practice underway as soon as possible here in Malaysia. They're only going to have an hour and 15 minutes free practice, and then it's straight into qualifying. And Lucas de Grassi was saying yesterday, we've got 20 laps to get the car sorted, and that's not very much.
You know what? They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. In most championships, you're tyre limited anyway now. So in the first session, if the track is dry, all things being equal, you don't want to go straight out there and run because the track is dirty, and you don't want to waste your tyres at that point. You want to get it as close as you can to race-like conditions. So all the teams, all the drivers will be able to learn what they need to learn in that short space of time.
Karun Chandok at the wheel of his Mahindra car, the Indian team that is run by the British team Carlin, so a real fusion going on at Mahindra, and it seems to be working out pretty well for them because they had good pace in Beijing. I think they set the fastest time of the weekend with Bruno Senna. Didn't quite come together for Senna, especially in qualifying, and Chandok managed to drive home to pick up a 5th place finish. So it was a strong-ish first outing for Mahindra, but with 8 rounds still to go, there's a lot to play for, and it's going to take a while, isn't it, before the order shakes out?
Yeah, I think it will, but you know that Trevor Carlin and his outfit run first-class cars, and you saw they did a video of Karun on the simulator, and that's just the stuff they're showing us. What we see, I would say, quite big gains in most areas when as they understand the car more, the power plant more, the batteries, how to get the most out of everything, the tyres, and so the teams and the drivers are going to be figuring this out. And I expect to see quite big jumps at the start of the season, and then those gains will become smaller and smaller as they understand it a little better.
Have a look at the exit of turn 7. This is Ho Pin Tung, the Chinese driver racing for Team China Racing, and he had a difficult weekend in his opening race of the season. Did Ho Pin Tung, finished the last of the classified runners. Unfortunately, he had gearbox problems after an accident in qualifying, which meant he had to start right down at the back of the grid and couldn't really fight his way up the order. His teammate Nelson Piquet Jr. managed to finish in 8th place for Team China Racing, but it was Andretti who lead the team's championship with the 2nd and 4th positions, so they are currently 4 points clear ahead of Audi Sport Apt, who is the team that Lucas de Grassi and Daniel Abt drive for, and then Virgin Racing are in 3rd place, and Andretti really were the only team to pick up good solid points in both of their cars. So that's why they are now leading the team's championship after just one round. And there's Nelson Piquet Jr. in the sister Team China car, the Brazilian who picked up that 8th place in Beijing. And he's just having a little chat with his engineer as we once again look at the second stretch. So we've got the first chicane there over on the back towards the right hand side, and then this is the second run down towards the 90-degree right-hander of turn 3 that's just to the sort of bottom left of our picture at the moment. And this pit building is actually a temporary construction. It's a massive facility. It took them 6 months to put it together. It's going to take them 2 months to bring it down again. So but it really is impressive, isn't it?
They should just leave it up for next year.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like that'll be less effort.
Down here there's some bumps yet. We saw I think it was Bruno Senna yesterday locking up and even at a relatively slow speed and went down the escape road. So there's a couple of bumps, and some of the drivers on the track walk were saying, it's almost like they've put these speed bumps in the track. They're just at the point you don't want them. Just it's a surface change or an indentation in the track surface. So there is stuff out there to catch you out. As I said, turn 5 has got the most interesting sort of drop into it, as has turn 7, and turn 7 is a fairly quick corner. And as these things happen, right on the exit point, this is where the walls join at a point, and it's could get interesting then.
So we can now hear from Christian Monchui, who's the Chief Technical Officer at Venturi. He's been talking to Nicky Shields ahead of this first practice session.
Well, here we are outside the Venturi garage, and I'm joined by the CTO, Nicholas Modi. Nicholas, you guys have had your work cut out since Wednesday evening, really, rebuilding Nick's car. Are both of his cars going to be ready for today?
Yes, exactly. All our 4 cars will be ready for today. It was an amazing job that all the team have provided, because it was really difficult because of the short time that we have to rebuild the damaged cars of Nick's cars after the accidents. So we spend lots of time on these cars, but we have also to spend times on the other cars. We have some trouble with another car, so we need to spend more times. So it has been just a few hours of sleeps for all the teams. But we are here, and we are here to fight and to try to compete against the others.
So Stefan in Beijing had problems with his gearbox. Have you managed to sort that out?
Yes, exactly. So we have to change also the gearbox of Stefan, and also some other parts that we have to change, and we have to reinforce all the gearbox in general to try not to have the same trouble with all the gearbox that we have. So that's true.
Great. Well, good luck today. Thank you.
Good to hear from Nicholas Modi there, the Chief Technical Officer at the Venturi team, who were sort of quite quiet in testing in Donington, and then all of a sudden they sort of burst onto the scene in Beijing.
Yeah, they weren't one of the fancied runners, were they? And then you saw that sort of last stint of the race, and here comes Nick Heidfeld, and they just did it when it was important.
But they make their way around the circuit, and it's been shortened this session to 1 hour and 5 minutes, and the cars are out there on the track now, and we can start to really have a look at this Putrajaya circuit. And how difficult is it to learn a street circuit knowing, I mean, you've always got to not hit the wall. I appreciate that in whatever series you're doing, but you've really not got to hit the wall here, haven't you?
There's no time, is there, between sessions, and it's such a packed program today that you cannot afford those mistakes. You need both cars for the race, and it will be punished if you make a mistake. The mechanics can't repair the cars in time for qualifying, certainly. So there's always that little bit of being conservative, I think. Try telling that to racing driver, though, right? It's not going to happen. But they've done some simulation, a lot of the teams. Apparently the simulation numbers they were given in the track was not that accurate in some areas, so there's going to be a few surprises out there. And actually, having seen you drive the sim yesterday there, Jack, maybe you should be out there, or not, as the case may be.
I was all right. You were the one who refused to race me.
I saw how badly you looked.
Just because you retired in real life doesn't mean you have to retire from simulators as well.
I have somewhat of a reputation that I don't want to completely tarnish by really being pretty bad at it.
So we're watching Nelson Piquet Jr. out there on the circuit, and let's go with him then as he comes through turn 5, then the right-hander of turn 6, and out onto this sort of stretch that gently curves left down towards turn 7.
Yeah, watch the bump as he turns into fairly quick corner here, turn 7. Right there. And then the wall's out there to catch you when you make a wee mistake. Turn 8 and leading into turn 9, almost one corner. And then the turn 9 very, very bumpy, leading into this tight hairpin. You can see him locking the rears already there.
Yep, and of course the track is going to be very dirty. When it rains here, it tends to bring more dirt. Final
first lap, you're just learning where those bumps are, which ones you have to avoid, which ones compromise your line, all that kind of stuff there. And they'll be making notes. Engineers will be looking at the data on the regeneration stuff. That's such an important part of Formula E. We talk about it all the time, and the drivers will be figuring out what they want from the regeneration system, whether they're going to just use the brake system and program it that way, whether they're going to use the paddle. All this has to be taken into account, and the preferred technique of the driver. Some of them actually use the paddle, which acts almost as a rear brake to help steer the car into the corner sometimes. So guys are very, very busy in the car.
This is Nico Prost that we're watching, coming down into the left-hander of turn 5, and then the little spurt down towards 6, then out onto one of the longer stretches in this middle section of the track, as he flashes past and then heads down towards turn 7. The quickest time then that we've had so far is a 1:28.0 from Sebastian Buemi, but those times are going to come down and down, especially as there is a bit of moisture still out there on the circuit, as Prost is closing in on the back of Karun Chandhok as he comes up towards the hairpin. Gets it stopped, gets the car turned in.
The good news is there's not a lot of degradation in the tyre. You know, first couple of laps, you might see a little fall off after that, but they're very, very consistent. The Michelin guys have done a good job. So as you're learning the track, you're not dealing with a drop off in the performance of the tyre. So the lap time should be getting a lot quicker as they go on.
So Prost comes out to come across the line. Is he going to better Lucas de Grassi's 1:27.3? Not quite, as he comes across the line. It's a 1:29.423, but they'll all be running at different engine speed mappings, or powertrain mappings I should say. And there you can see Lucas de Grassi, the quickest man so far, a 1:27.303, and the percentage you can see is the usable power remaining. When that gets to 0%, it doesn't mean they're out of power, it just means they've used all of the energy they are allowed to use, as Matty Brabham tries to get the car turned into that final corner.
I think she was turning in just fine.
Yeah. And there is Bruno Senna across the line. Another thing to point out is that they will get 2 qualifying simulation runs in this session, and a lock-up in front there, I think, from Matty Brabham. You saw the plume of dust coming up, and Bruno Senna, who we're watching now, is the quickest man out there, a 1:26.332 in the Mahindra car. But just this one practice session ahead of the Formula E qualifying session, which will come up at 10 o'clock local time, and then the race, which gets underway at 2 o'clock local time. As we go on board now with Bruno Senna, and let's have a little chat to you about this graphic. Then you can see on the right hand side the 73% in the middle. That's the remaining usable power that he has in his battery. When that's down to 0 or near to 0, he's got to come in and change his car. You can see the kilometers an hour speed on the left hand side, the big arc that's looping around, that's just his speed. Then you've got the throttle indicator just inside of that. Over on the right hand side is the maximum power that he's using, and that shows us what engine map he's in. So when it's flashing green there at the bottom on that tower on the right hand side, that means he's using regen. When he gets on the power, you can see it's cresting at about 140 kilowatts, which is the, whoa, bit of a moment there, but that's the amount of power that he's using. And then you've got gear, you've got brake, and you've got massive oversteer on the way in. And that's pretty much the graphic, but he's working hard there, isn't he?
He is working hard. Going into that last corner, there's about 3 crosswalks, I guess we call them in America, and they're raised. So they're hitting those bumps, they're turning and they're braking at the same time. That's going to catch a lot of people out this weekend, I would say. It's it's all happening there. It's very, very busy, and again, they're trying to work out the regeneration, where the best places to do are, where they're going to lift and coast. You know, we talk about the usable power a lot, but that is such a major part of this championship, of minimizing the use of that. So you've got you can do maybe one more lap, and it's a typical thing of trying to go as quickly as possible using the least power, whether that's, you know, petrol, diesel, or in this case battery power.
And it was Daniel Abt, for example, who finished 3rd on the road in Beijing, but he had used too much power, and as a result was demoted well down the standings to 10th position. So that can show you just how important it is to get the usable power right, as Jaime Alguersuari makes his way around the circuit into the right-hander of 7.
You know, during the shakedown yesterday, we heard a lot of the radio conversations, and as these guys are driving round, they're constantly being talked to about the you know, the power usage, what they're doing, what map they're in, all those things. You see him taking his hand off the wheel there to get the car around. That's something about modern racing. You hear it in Formula 1, you hear it in WEC, and we certainly hear it here in Formula E as well, just being coached on how much of the fuel available, in our case, usable power, that's been used.
Jaime Alguersuari staying more to the centre of the track there, going up to the final corner. You saw the car in front of him going a lot wider out to the left to take perhaps a more traditional line, but street circuits are weird like that, aren't they? Because you get bumps in places that you don't really want them.
Absolutely, and that's the compromise of street course racing, and it's part of the thing that I loved about doing it. I almost think that Alguersuari was going to come in the pits, maybe. Did he look like he was thinking about it and then maybe told otherwise?
Yeah, potentially. There is Lucas de Grassi. As far as the times are concerned at the moment, Sebastian Buemi is the quickest man out there, a 1 minute 25.718, just less than a tenth of a second ahead of Frank Montani. Then Matty Brabham third, and Nelson Piquet Jr. actually has just gone quickest of anyone, as we look at Alain Prost, 4 times Formula 1 world champion, and now here as the co-founder of e.dams-Renault, very keen to stress he's not the team manager. He said, I did that in the 90s, don't want to do that again.
Yeah, he was. I think everybody was up early this morning. He wasn't looking too happy at breakfast. It was an early start for everybody, which is one of the tough parts of this one-day format.
Jerome D'Ambrosio there for Dragon Racing, turning through the 90-degree right-hander of turn 3 that takes them off the main dual carriageway and down towards the rivers in the middle of this city. And that's one way to keep cool, isn't it?
Yeah,
we could do with one of them in here.
Yeah, we could maybe get one. The aircon's not working too well today. You know, the humidity here is a big issue, and apparently it's not as bad as when the F1 circus comes to town, but it's still incredible that the drivers are having to deal with that. Obviously, then there's just the ambient heat, which with when you're charging the batteries and you're trying to cool things to get the most charge and all that, it's all got to be taken into account.
Oriol Servia in the second Dragon car, currently in, can't quite spot him, there he is, in 14th place on the timing screens. And with 54 minutes to go in this session, it still needs Nelson Piquet Jr., who's the quickest man for Team China Racing, who surprised us a little bit with their pace throughout, well, right from Donington Park. I don't think they were fancied as one of the front runners, but they've got a very good team running that squad, and they have put in some good lap times. So it's Nelson Piquet Jr. who's the quickest. Sebastian Buemi is second. Nick Heidfeld is third for Venturi. And at the moment, the top 6 cars are covered by 7/10 of a second. So it's quite close, even in these early stages, as we watch Catherine Legg, who won the fan boost in Beijing, and she's now out on circuit. Didn't get much running in the shakedown. And now Sebastian Buemi illustrating the pace that we all know he has, even if it wasn't quite there in, well, actually, to be fair, it was there in Formula 1, but he was one of the many drivers to be spurted out by the Red Bull Young Driver program.
Yeah, he's still working with Red Bull, isn't he? He's still doing a bunch of the sim stuff, and I believe is he the third driver?
Yes,
for the Red Bull team. Yeah, so he's still in there. Obviously, being a third driver nowadays means a lot different things than it used to. You do a lot of sim driving, but unfortunately not much of the car stuff. But he's a busy man between Formula E, WEC, his Red Bull commitments. He's and I think we've seen that with a lot of the drivers. Look at Sarrazin.
Yeah,
he won the WEC race last week. He won the was it the Tour de Corse the week before, in the rally car.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable diversity in what these guys are jumping in and driving. It's good to see.
Yeah, Stefan Sarrazin won a round in the European Rally Championship in Corsica, and he beat Brian Bouffier, so it's a pretty strong field in the ERC, and it was very impressive of him to win that, then to win in the World Endurance Championship, and now to be here, currently in 8th position. He really is a very diverse driver. Ho Pin Tung at the wheel of the Team China car, a man with plenty of GT racing experience and single-seater racing experience as well. He was German F3 champion in the mid-2000s, 2007 I think, and he is not looking as strong as Nelson Piquet Jr. at the moment, down in 18th position. But Sam Bird has just gone fastest in the first sector and a personal best in the middle sector. Yes. We're watching the Virgin driver now.
He's pushing hard, isn't he?
coming into the hairpin. And as I say, basically in each car, they will get one run at a qualifying simulation. So that's their one chance to try and get some good pace on the board. And it's so bumpy into that final corner, isn't it? It's brilliant as he turns into the right-hander. Not really troubling the apex. But let's see what lap time he can do as he comes towards the line. Sam Bird across the line. Is he going to go quickest of anyone? And no, he is not.
That timing line's a long way down there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Normally the timing line is before the start line, but here it seems to be quite a long way after.
I love watching the oversteer and the way these guys are sliding these cars around. It's great to see this sort of the lack of grip that's intentionally sort of provided by the limited downforce, the dual use tire. It's yeah, great to see that. Yeah, see them fighting the car. You can see when they're working.
Nelson Piquet Jr. still the quickest man, then a 25.342 for him. Sam Bird second quickest as he clouts the curbs on the inside there.
There was a lot of talk about monstering curbs yesterday during the track walk. I passed these guys, Sam and his engineer, and they were definitely talking about monstering some curbs at one point. Again, it's that trying to keep momentum. He did say we're using the curb there in 7, but it's trying to keep momentum through the corner and get any mile an hour you can possibly keep to keep the speed up.
Into the quick left flick at 9, the back end stepping out just a little bit as he gets on the brakes into turn 10. You can see his hands coming out, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, it seems a fairly slow rack. Your steering rack there, they're having to do almost over one turn. Maybe that's limited by regulation, I don't know, but it's when that thing unwinds in a hurry, it's tough to be grabbing a wheel that's got, it's got gear shift levers on it, it's got all kinds of stuff that's going to spin round and catch your hands, so not the easiest thing for the drivers to do, I would say.
Sam Bird pulls into the pits, and most of the drivers have come into the pits now. We've just got Bruno Senna, Karun Chandok, Jaime Alguersuari and Catherine Legge out there on the circuit. Nico Prost in the pits, 10th place for him.
They seem to do that, they go in waves. Everybody goes out in waves and then wonders why they get troubled by traffic. It's the same thing in qualifying, everybody wants to wait till the end, but the worst thing you can have happen is you're on a lap as people start coming out of the pits.
Yellow flag at turn 7, so perhaps someone has had a bit of a misdemeanor there. There is Nelson Piquet Jr. back out on the circuit as he comes across the line. And no, my apologies, that's Ho Pin Tung in the Team China car as he comes under the bridge and down towards the first corner. The yellow flag has gone in, so we're back under green flag conditions here. Ho Pin Tung chasing down Stefan Sarazan on the run down into turn 3, and again he moves more into the middle of the track and then lines up the run into turn 3. We go on board with him now.
Yeah, good to see down the hill here into turn 4. I love this corner, it looks really quite quick. See, it's a little damp there in the middle. And he's got a wee bit of room on the exit still to use. Coming in here to 5, we can see the dip just as they hit. There you go, right there. Out through 5, over the wet patch there through 5. Out through 6, and then this kink coming up to turn 7. You'll see the front of the car really dip as he hits just about the apex, turn 7 here in a second. Just about right. Now, he's a little very cautious there actually through that. Turn 8, Jack went off there in the simulator yesterday.
I went off everywhere. That doesn't differentiate it from anywhere else, does it?
Look at the bumps through there, through turn 9. Same problem. Look, whole turn of lock to get through that hairpin. Very bumpy, very dirty here through turn 11. And then watch the bump just about now. Yeah, he managed to avoid it a wee bit there, that's good.
He comes now into turn 10.
Quickest middle sector for Matty there.
Yeah, pushing very, very hard in that Andretti car. 31.5 in the middle sector as he comes out now towards the final corner. Let's see whether he manages to avoid the bump a little bit. Turns into the final corner.
He got the apex.
Yep, absolutely. So can he challenge a 123.703 at the top of the timings here, Matty Brabham? Not quite. Let's see, it's a 123.854, so a tenth and a half down on Nico Prost. Sebastian Buemi, as you said though, has just gone fastest of anyone in the middle sector.
Well, and Matty Brabham lost at least that in turn 7 with that big lockup, so he's looking quite strong.
Jaime Alguersuari being pushed back into the pit lane, and Sebastian Buemi will cross the line reasonably soon to potentially go quicker than his teammate Nico Prost, as we see Stefan Sarazan up behind Karun Chandok, and Sebastian Buemi does go quickest, 1.4 seconds quicker than his teammate, so a 122.256 for Buemi.
hell of a lap, wasn't it?
Yeah, yellow flag's out again at turn 7, where that apt car just came through. So someone has obviously gone straight on down the escape road at turn 7 by the looks of things. And as a result, Daniel Abt might have had to back off a little bit here.
That's turn 5 there, I think, Jack.
Okay.
He's coming up to 7 here, so we'll see if what's happened. Somebody down the runoff, hopefully, rather than parked in the wall.
I think it was the other Audi Apt car that we saw going through there, but let's have a look. And yes, just off there, off to the left, someone has probably gone in a little too deep on the brakes. But Daniel Abt continuing on his way, but he's 4.4 seconds down in the middle sector because he might have been on his qualifying sim. Yes, it is Bruno Senna, and he just went straight on. By the looks of things, the car seems to be in a good enough condition. Thumbs up.
That was very nice of him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Give the marshals a wee wave.
Yeah.
Daniel Abt's been busy. He was out in America testing an IndyCar for the Andretti team in the off time between the Beijing and now. So he's had a busy wee time.
He had to make the choice this weekend between doing this or doing GP2 because he's competed in GP2 for the whole of this season, but decided this takes priority.
Good man.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with the GP2 title already being wrapped up by someone else, I suppose. There's work going on at the back of the Team China car.
The right height adjustment, it looks like there.
Going on at the back of, that's Nelson Piquet Jr.'s car.
At least I think it's a right height adjustment. I was never involved in that part. I generally broke them rather than fixed them.
It's actually Ho Pin Tung's car because Nelson Piquet Jr. is out there on the circuit and both of Ho Pin Tung cars were there in the pits. Here is Frank Montani, and he's on an outlap, and look at that, he was all 4 wheels off the ground there. That was insane.
Frank doesn't worry about bumps, does he? He's loving it. He's loving driving these cars, Frank. He broke his in-car camera yesterday in the pit lane, the shakedown, just seeing how long the nose was, and you know, he was sort of used it as a curb feeler to the car in front while queuing up to get out there. I don't think Frank takes too much seriously, does he?
No, I don't think so. Car 30 is being warned to respect track limits. That's Stefan Sarazan. I'm not 100% sure where you could go over the track limits.
First corner. I think other than that, the walls kind of mark the limits. And, I'm not sure you'd be testing those too much, or we'd certainly know about it.
So here is Montani through the left-hander of 5 and then into the right-hander of 6, out onto this stretch that takes him down towards turn 7. And he sits very high up in the car, doesn't he? Much higher than anyone else out there.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That must be a personal choice because he's not particularly tall, is he?
He's a fairly tall guy. It must be, yeah. Any other car I've ever seen him drive, he sat down in it. But I don't know.
Through the hairpin of turn 10.
Maybe that was the seat. Michael said you're not getting another seat.
Yeah.
I think I broke Michael's seat budget some years ago. Actually, we made more than one, put it that way.
Look at that, really struggling to get the car stopped in time. And he's pushing hard out there, Montani.
I think his line in the last corner, he's hitting bumps that other guys aren't seeing, so he might have to modify that a little bit. And it could be as well that he's doing too much regen. Frank uses the paddle a lot for regen rather than just setting it up on the braking system.
Okay.
And maybe that's catching him out there in that last corner.
So he comes down towards turn 3. Currently it's an e.dams 1-2 at the top. Sebastian Buemi and Nico Prost, with Matty Brabham then 3rd for Andretti. Nick Heidfeld 4th for Venturi. 5th is Nelson Piquet Jr. for Team China, and 6th is Sam Bird for Virgin Team. But quite a lot of field spread at the moment because they're only allowed 2 full-speed qualifying lap simulations. So some of them we presume, like Buemi and Prost, have used theirs, whereas the rest of the field perhaps are going to wait and get the car spot on before they then go quick.
Well, maybe that just shows that e.dams are ahead of the game. Maybe they're happy with the cars already. I mean, if it was me, I'd have probably let the track come in a wee bit more before doing that, but they've got more information than I have, so maybe they know something that, you know.
Track evolution isn't going to be that... Well, how dramatic is it going to be? Because it's not going to be about laying rubber down in the way it is in other, high downforce single-seaters. It's more just going to be literally cleaning.
Well, it's going to be cleaning it, and as we've said, when it rains here, it brings dirt on the track, and it rains every day. So I think you're going to see the track cleaning up quite a lot. As you say, you're going to spend some time getting the car a little happier. the regen stuff, the set up the car working over the bumps with the dampers, and obviously the e.dams guys are fairly happy with it. And the other thing we've got here is there's still wet patches in the track too. There's still some rivers running across it. Not massive, but it all counts. Look, you can just see it through there.
By sort of 2 o'clock this afternoon, when the race gets underway, I imagine the circuit will be bone dry as Nick Heidfeld comes down towards turn 3, currently 4th quickest in his Venturi car. Behind him is the Amna Naguri, and there is Bruno Senna in his Mahindra, currently 7th at the moment, and he was the quickest man of anyone in Beijing, set the fastest lap time of the weekend. And Sebastian Buemi is currently the quickest man so far for the e.dams-Renault team. And there is the view of Putrajaya down towards the President's house there, the Prime Minister's residence at the bottom, with the mosque on the left-hand side. It's a stunning place, this.
Absolutely beautiful. There's my hotel on the right.
Okay.
And I think the noise from the mosque woke me up at 5 o'clock this morning. It was all happening a bit early for me.
Your hotel's just there, very nice. Well, lucky you.
Since you stole my car yesterday, I had to walk to the hotel. Or did I walk to the hotel, then you stole my car?
That was the way around it went, yeah. But it was a very pleasant ride back to the hotel. Thank you very much for that. So, except I had to direct the driver, because he didn't know where my hotel was. He'd never heard of it.
I'd say we should put him in one of the cars. Yeah. He was pretty special this morning on the way here.
So here's Nico Prost down towards the first chicane, and he was second quickest, but now Frank Montagny has gone second quickest, the man that we're looking at essentially from the back of Nico Prost's car, but Montagny is still a second slower than Sebastian Buemi, as we see the graphics come up here from Nico Prost. He's running at, he's pushing it now, so he's going up to 200 kilowatts, you can see on the right hand side, which is the maximum power output from the car.
He's in qualifying trim then.
Yep. And when it flashes into that green regen, that means he's regenerating, as you can see on the tower on the bottom right hand side of the graphic there. He's got 76% of his usable power remaining, getting up to about 150, 160 kilometers an hour before he turns into turn 7. Now into the left hand side, you can also see, because he says he's in map 6, which also shows that he's in full power, but the maps, they can choose what map they want to run specific, so that wasn't very clear, but each map they can assign how many kilowatts they're running to, so it's much easier to tell from the tower on the right hand side. What has he done then? It's a fastest middle sector of anyone for Nico Prost. The first sector was reasonably decent as well, so let's see whether he can usurp his teammate at the top of the timings. Across the line comes Nico Prost, but he's second, 0.4 of a second down on Sebastian Buemi, and straight on at the first chicane.
He had about 76% battery left. Now the regen thing is a bit complicated, because between 100, when it starts 100%, obviously there's no regeneration because there's nothing to tune up.
Oh, Jerome D'Ambrosio in the Dragon car has come to a stop and then got going again, so maybe a little reboot.
Maybe, yeah. So between 100, obviously there's no regen, and then on the way to 80%, the amount that it can regenerate it changes as the more the battery goes down, the more you can regenerate. And you've got to continually adjust in the car for that. So the drivers are adjusting the brake balance from the point at the start of with 100% battery life. They've got they're relying on the normal mechanical brakes front and rear. As it starts to regenerate more and more, they're having to adjust in the car for that. And also they're having to adjust the way the car regens too. So it's pretty complicated. And the drivers are really, as I said, working very, very hard to keep this car in balance. Because trust me, a 1% or 2% brake balance shift, you're going for a big trip down the runoff areas, and they're adjusting almost 10% brake balance throughout from between 100 and 100% battery and 80% usable power.
And when we talk about regen, it's essentially the energy that is used under braking is recuperated and then turned into electrical energy. So whereas in something like Formula 1, you get the energy recovery and then that sort of works in the hybrid sense, this gets essentially directly pumped back into the powertrain. So it's all a lot more inclusive rather than being two separate systems.
You know, in a WEC car, Formula 1 car, they do all this automatically. It's all done through computer, as far as the regeneration, the brake balance, all that sort of stuff, and it's still catching those guys out. The drivers here are having to do a lot of that manually, as far as change the brake balance, and the regen is not such a massively complex system yet. And so they've got a 3D map they can make with the driver and their engineers. They can make a 3D map of how it regenerates, and that they say is very, very tricky to get right. But the technology right now is kept quite basic to keep costs under control.
Lucas Di Grassi has done personal bests in the first 2 sectors as he comes across the line. Is he going to move up any places as he comes through? Yeah, he jumps up into 6th place. One man looking quick is Jerome D'Ambrosio. We saw him stopped on the track a minute ago, but he's done the fastest first sector of anyone, and he is breaking that Dragon car as he comes through the final corner. Fastest first sector of anyone, good middle sector. Let's see what the 3rd sector's like as he comes towards the line now.
Is he braking the car? Actually breaking the car.
Yeah, exactly. It's 3rd quickest for D'Ambrosio.
That's good.
So
yeah, too much of that, and you might end up breaking the tub. Too many impacts like that. I have to say though, the tubs have been very, very strong. We've seen that in a couple of fairly sizable crashes, both in testing and in the first race there. So they've done, I think, a great job with that.
And it was also good to see that the batteries and everything were very safe as well, because after Nick Heidfeldt's crash in Beijing, as Ho Pin Tung locks up and goes straight on at the first corner, the battery was sent back to Williams and they checked it all out and they said it's absolutely fine, we will replace it just for the sort of sake of it, but the battery withstood that impact, and fingers crossed, I don't think we'll be seeing many more big impacts like that.
God, I hope not.
There's not much more. We've sort of ruined it for ourselves. Really. There's not
don't say it.
much further we can go from there. But there was the lock-up for Ho Pin Tung, currently the slowest man of anyone. And he set 15 laps out there, Ho Pin Tung, so he must be having a few problems. Karun Chandok also taking the alternative route down at the first chicane.
Or as it's now known, the preferred line.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to happen, though. You're just pushing the limits. And one thing you'll see with the driver's view into turn 1, the wall continues all the way to the apex now. It's a straight line, and so you don't see the apex point until you're right on top of it. And I think some of that was done to take away the need for those sausage curbs that created some of the issue in Nick Heidfeldt's accident in China. Sam
Bird talking to his engineer at Virgin Racing. Currently 10th quickest is teammate Jaime Alguersuari is 11th quickest, so Virgin not right at the front of the field at the moment. As we see Stefan Sarazan 12th quickest at the moment. And it looks as though maybe 4 cars, maybe 5, have used their qualifying lap runs, and that being the top 4 or 5, I'd have thought. And Lucas Di Grassi from 6th place downwards seems to be the split from where drivers haven't used the full power run yet. And how quickly can you learn a street track like this? Is it 5 laps and you know what you're doing and away you go?
But yeah, between 5 and 10. Street course with all the bumps as well, that's what you're learning. What you're trying to do, or what I would try and do when I was driving, was get into a rhythm with it. And you just start slowly building up that thing. Braking a little later, coming off the brakes, running a bit more speed through, getting back to the power a bit earlier. And obviously you're improving the car as you go along, but you're trying to get that rhythm going. And when you do, it's amazing how much more speed you can carry. And when you start the lap with a bit more speed, it continues through the whole lap and makes quite a bit of difference. A track with as many corners as this, you gain a tenth or two at every corner. You've got quite an advantage.
Stefan Sarazan across the line then. He is currently in 13th place, but he jumps up into 10th position. So a good lap from Sarazan, but still 3 seconds down on Sebastian Buemi, not running at full qualifying sim pace yet. Just half an hour of this session to go, so half an hour left before the drivers get into qualifying mode, and even the qualifying sessions are pretty tight on time, really. They're going to get 2 flying laps. They'll go out of the pits, have a flying lap, a cool down lap, another flying lap, and back into the pits. So really there's not much opportunity to get it wrong. There you can see Antonio Felix da Costa and Catherine Legg down in 16th and 17th positions. So Amlin Aguri still struggling a little bit as the cars flash up towards the final corner. This is Karun Chandok into the final corner. What sort of lap times has he done so far? It's not the quickest lap we've ever seen. Jerome D'Ambrosio, meanwhile, has gone quickest of anyone, 122.043. So the Dragon Racing car of Jerome D'Ambrosio now tops the timings here in Putrajaya.
Karun got to that last corner apex quite nicely there, and I think you're seeing with D'Ambrosio there, you're seeing the track evolution. You're seeing it just improving a little bit, and you know, it's going to continue to get quicker, and they're going to get quicker with the cars too as they learn. You get the cars working a bit better over the bumps, improve the damping, all that kind of stuff.
Here is the Hope in Tongue Nelson Piquet Jr. car.
We need to get them to change their helmet colours.
I know. It's all got to be done on roll hoops, hasn't it? I think that's the key for these Team China guys, because their helmets are very similar. Because in these are great because you can usually tell from the helmets, whereas in other single-seater series it's impossible to spot the helmets these days. But Nelson Piquet Jr. seems to be pushing, doesn't he?
He's pushing hard.
Just laid black lines all the way around that corner. Down he comes towards turn 7. And
I think he might be on qualifying boost here, judging by the way he's pushing.
He's done a 21.2 in the first sector, which is his best so far. Not the quickest of anyone. In fact, Oriol Servia's just done a very fast first sector, a 20.7. So Servia in the second Dragon car might be one to watch out for.
I think Dragon have figured something out over those 2 months, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've really they've jumped up a bit. Good to see.
Yeah, because they weren't particularly happy at the opening runs. Well, they were quite late to joining the party, really, weren't they? They had a lot of time where they weren't fully on board with the whole thing, and they were late arriving at Donington and even starting work on the cars, as we see someone slowing down there on the inside, and I think that was Jerome D'Ambrosio, but now they seem to be getting into the flow a bit, Dragon.
Yeah, absolutely. We showed up for that one of the race sims, didn't we? And they were still building the interior of their shop there, so no, they've got good people involved in that project, and they're definitely starting to figure it out there.
There is not Michele Ceruti, that's the Mahindra car that we're looking at, of I think Karun Chandok. Antonio Felix da Costa at the wheel of the Amlin Aguri car, and Amlin are a strange one. I haven't quite figured out how or what their problems are, and I don't think they have either, because they're a very experienced crew. It's most of the people who ran the very popular Super Aguri team in Formula One, and with Antonio Felix da Costa they had Takuma Sato in the last race, and that's a problem for one of the Trulli cars. And
has that just come off rather than...
It's Michele Ceruti who's in trouble.
It looks like that's just parted company rather than... Or has it been assisted? I'm trying to see the back left there to see that it's...
Yeah, I can't quite tell, can you?
Is that some marks on the side of the...
Potentially.
The
Well,
flip up?
let's have a look. Oh no, I think that's just loose, isn't it?
It looks it. Yeah, it's just loose. Oops.
So that's a bit of a mistake from someone in the Trulli camp, I'd imagine.
That's not what they need right now.
No.
They're up against it already, and they've got stuff like that happening. So, yeah. The thing, we're going back to the Amlin guys. With any of these series, when everybody's essentially running the same basic package, it's all about the details. It's all about the tiniest details. When you go to a team like, somebody like Trevor Carling, who runs GP2, GP3, you name it, and that group is very used to getting the most out of a set regulation, and that is why you're seeing a lot of these guys employed. A lot of these teams are employed to run other people's outfits because they really understand it.
Yeah,
it's a shortcut straight to the front of the grid almost.
There is Michele Ceruti's then, her car about to be hoisted clear as the cars come in back into the pits. The clock will keep ticking during this red flag period, but that shouldn't take too long to clear out, I wouldn't have thought. So hopefully we'll still get a good 20 minutes of running still to go as Bruno Senna is pushed back into the garage.
These guys, obviously, they do incredibly well too, having won the GP2 this year. There's a lot of experience in that pit lane, and a lot of very, very good teams.
Yeah, that's a very good point actually about the teams that are experienced in one-make championships, and certainly the likes of Dams and Carlin, as you say, are going to be very, very strong in those sorts of scenarios. There is Jarno Trulli then back into his pit garage. He works with the Supernova squad, who 3000 team, as Bruno Senna currently 8th quickest. It's Jerome D'Ambrosio quickest then for Dragon, 0.2 of a second clear of Sebastian Buemi. Oriol Servia 3rd, so it was a good lap in the end for Servia, and as a result it's 1 and 3 for the Dragon Racing team. Nico Prost in 4th, Frank Montani 5th for Andretti, Nelson Piquet Jr. 6th for Team China Racing, 7th is Matty Brabham for Andretti, 8th is Bruno Senna. It's the Apt guys who are a little further down than we would have thought, but maybe they haven't set their full qualifying lap pace yet.
I mean, Piquet's done 22 laps out there. So he's clearly maxed out the first car, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And then jumped in and done a qualifying sim in the second car. That's a lot of laps in such a short space of time there.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Karun's done 20 laps as well, so we're seeing, they're obviously working on the race stuff.
Jarno Trulli, meanwhile, has only done 8 laps, and Catherine Legge only done 9, so that's not what you need when track time is so crucial.
His next stop qualifying.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no time there. You got, as we said earlier, you got 2 laps really to figure it out, and then straight into the race. But you can't push it too far though, because as we said earlier, you make a mistake, sorry, you just don't have time to fix the car.
Yeah.
And so it adds another layer of complexity to what all the drivers and the teams are trying to do.
So we now have another little look at the city of Putrajaya, some 30 kilometers south of Malaysia. And there you can see the spectacular scenery that surrounds this city, one that was designed to be as eco-friendly as possible. There is the mosque that's down towards the final corner. We can now hear from Michael Andretti, and their cars have been running pretty well so far today. Let's see what he reckons. He's with Nicky Shields.
Michael Andretti, we're here in the Andretti garage, and I can already see behind the mechanics have got a few problems there with Frank's battery. What's going on?
Yeah, I guess the battery went to 0, and so they had to change it, so it's gonna be down for a while. So it's gonna hurt him a little bit for practice, because he can't run both cars, so a little disappointing, but we'll get it.
Do you think you'll be ready in time for qualifying?
It should be. I think he'll end up running this car instead of that one, but we'll see. Be all right.
And you've got a new driver today, Matthew Brabham.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job. He's a really good kid. I think we have a lot of hope in him for the future, and he's not letting us down. He's doing really well.
Obviously, the other thing that everyone's looking at today is the temperature battery. How are you going to be managing that and trying to keep it as cool as possible?
Well, I think that's a challenge for sure, but I think so far so good. I think we're not having any major problems with that.
Excellent, thank you.
Cards close to his chest there, Michael, as he seems pretty relaxed about the whole process over the weekend so far.
I think he's learning patience as a team owner, Mike. The stuff that team owners go through, it's not a job I could do. We were discussing it yesterday. It's just such a painful thing, because as a driver you used to have a lot of things in your control. As a team owner, nothing. You've got crazy drivers crashing your cars, making mistakes, and you've just got to sort of sit there. I think it's quite a departure from Mike, but you see him there talking to Frank, and what they're up to for the plan for the rest of this session, with 20 minutes left, or just under 20.
There is the bridge, at which point is the hairpin of turn 10, so just the right hand side of the bottom of that bridge is the hairpin of turn 10. This is down at the
Jack
first
and
chicane.
I designed a track, we would be going over that bridge.
Yeah, we'd go over the bridge, definitely, and then come back over the bridge. That would be cool. But it's cool enough as it is. I think we'll let them off for this year, but we'll have a word with them about next year, I think.
I think they've done a hell of a job, and the cars look great going around this place.
And only one chicane as well, which is very nice. The rest of it is a sort of natural street circuit, which is always good to see. I mean, that's not to criticise too much the Beijing circuit, because it gave us some great racing and some entertaining action, but this has got much more of a natural flow to it.
It does, and it's not your typical 90 degree corners. A lot of character to this track.
So Hans-Jürgen Abt, the team principal of the Abt team, has been chatting to Nicky. Not a great day for them so far. Let's hear from him.
Hans-Jürgen, we're here in the Abt garage. Now, obviously the podium was snatched away from Daniel in Beijing. Are we going to see him back on the podium this week, today?
I hope so. Of course, we try hard to prepare very good for the qualifying, and we will see what's going on. Now everything runs to the plan, and I hope we keep going.
And he's going to be qualifying in Group 1. Do you think that's going to be a setback?
Yeah, I think so. It's not a good advantage, because I think the track will improve a lot. But in the end, it's a lottery, and we have to accept it.
And how's practice been going for you? Any technical difficulties?
Pardon?
Have there been any technical difficulties this morning in practice?
No, everything runs well, and it's good because we can run our program and we will see what's going on.
Now, Lucas yesterday was saying that he was a bit frustrated that the change in the rules of the regenerative braking has been limited to 100 kilowatts. Is that going to be an issue? Have you managed to set the car up in time?
It's difficult, but in the end it's for everybody, and we have to accept it, and we will see what's going on. The temperature is really high here, and I hope we have not a lot of issues on the cars, and that's why we reduce the region.
Good luck, thank you.
Good to hear from Hans-Jürgen Abt, the Abt team with a very strong heritage. And there is Michela Ceruti, as we saw her earlier on, losing the wheel, and now looking for a ride back, I think, to the paddock. But she will be heading back sooner or later. But great to have the Abt team here, a very successful history with Hans-Jürgen Abt. And there's also the Christian Abt team as well, a sort of separate entity. But there is Jarno, sat at the wheel of his Trulli car, and he's got all 4 wheels at the moment, which is good to see. As far as the qualifying groups are concerned, then we'll just take you through those, because when qualifying gets underway later on, Group 1 will go out first, and that'll be Bruno Senna, Matti Brabham, Stefan Sarazan, Daniel Abt, and Nelson Piquet Jr. And then in Group 2, it'll be Karun Chandok, Jarno Trulli, Michela Ceruti, Frank Montagny, and Ho Pin Tung. Group 3 will be Aurel Servia, Jerome D'Ambrosio, Nico Prost, Sebastian Buemi, and Nick Heidfeld. And in Group 4, it'll be Sam Bird, Jaime Alguersuari, Lucas de Grassi, Antonio Felix da Costa, and Catherine Legge. And so both the Amlin cars out in the final group, both the Virgin cars out in the final group as well, and Lucas de Grassi. They're drawn totally at random. And okay, it's good to be in the 4th group, but the 3rd group isn't too bad. We saw the first couple of places on the grid being taken by the 3rd group in Beijing.
No, absolutely. You will see the track getting better, and doesn't mean it can't be done in the earlier groups. It will be tougher though. But the thing to think about here in Malaysia is the possibility of rain too, which makes it a complete lottery. And yeah, if that comes on, all bets are off.
So there is Michela Ceruti's car then being taken away from the circuit, so we should get the green flag going in about half a minute's time. It's not a bad house, that.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine the air conditioning bill.
It's very true. That is the residence of the Prime Minister, Mr. Najib Razak, who will be here later on, no doubt. And it really is a stunning facility around here. Look at that garden up at the top as well. Very nice. But meanwhile, back to the racing. We can hear from Alex Tai, who is the boss of the Virgin Racing team. He's talking to Nicky Shields with his cars currently further down the field.
Alex Tai, you had a great time in Beijing with Sam's results, but Alguersuari suffered with a few technical issues, and it seems to be the same today. What's the problem with the throttle?
There's basically too much throttle movement on the first car that he went out and had a shakedown lap with this morning. So we've had to reduce the throttle travel limit. Otherwise, the throttle monitoring computer sees that it's over boosting, so it takes the power off. So it's actually quite complicated trying to adjust those pedals stuck in the nose. So that's taken that car out for the best part of this free practice session.
Have you had the chance to speak to the drivers yet? What do they think of the track?
Oh, they really like the track. I think it's great. They're both very, very happy with the setup of the car, and they like the opportunities for passing on this track, so they're excited about the race.
Now, you've also recently been appointed the chairman of FETA. How's that been going?
Well, it's only started really yesterday, so so far everyone's aligned. I think it's a fairly straightforward job at the moment, because not only all the teams, but the series and FIA are in accord. I'm sure we'll have challenges, but we've had none yet to deal with.
What does FETA actually stand for?
It's the Formula E Teams Association.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes, the Formula E Teams Association, the offshoot of FOTA, or FOTA, I suppose, in Formula One. And also
sounds a bit cheesy, doesn't it?
Well, e.dams have joined, so And the Teams Association is there really to present a united front, I suppose, to the FIA. But I mean, I can't really think of many teams associations that have lasted particularly long, because all of a sudden different teams want different things and everything falls apart. I'm not meaning to be too negative about the future of FETA, but that tends to be how things work.
Yes, but I think you'll find here everybody's got an eye on the big picture, and obviously everybody's got their team's interest at heart, but they realise that as a group they've got more strength and they can guide things in a better way. The drivers at the same time, the drivers have got Oriol Servia and Karun Chandok sort of speaking for them as a united front. It's something we did in IndyCar as well, and the Formula One drivers do it as well. It just cuts out, with drivers, you put 30 drivers in the room, you're going to get 30 opinions. You put 20 team owners in the room, you're going to get 20 opinions, and all these people think they're absolutely right. So it kind of cuts down on that a wee bit, and you've got more chance of getting stuff done.
And just to go back to the discussion for Jaime Alguersuari, when he's having too much throttle movement, what do they mean by that? Saying that the computer's reading the throttle is too high and so it takes the power away. It sounds very complicated.
Yeah, it sounds like they haven't got the potentiometers either set up right, or there's a fault in the potentiometer of the throttle. Obviously it's fly-by-wire because it's running a motor as opposed to an engine, but yeah, it sounds like there's an issue there, so they'll fix that. It's not, I would imagine it's not a big thing unless it's a potentiometer, a fault with the actual manufacturer of it, in which case they've got an issue.
So hopefully we'll be getting this session restarted in a couple of minutes' time. We're just waiting for confirmation, and then we'll have a final 10 minutes or so, which could be quite fun actually. If a lot of drivers haven't used their full qualifying boost yet, we might see some quick lap times going out there. They're all queuing up at the end of the pit lane because they want to get out there and make use of these last 10 minutes.
Oh, it's going to be fun. There's no doubt about that. But all the drivers and the engineers are sitting there just now, all looking at their watches, going, "Come on! Yeah, we've got a program here. We're supposed to be out there. We haven't finished our race runs. We've got to, change cars now and get in the car and do the qualifying sim, or, and so your program is somewhat compromised now because of this issue, and there's a bit of frustration. But as they say, SFE, same for everyone."
Michaela Cerruti is back in the pits, and presumably she can go straight back out, actually, can't she? She can just get in a second car and get back out onto the circuit. So,
if it's charged up.
Well, if it's charged up, that's very true. But we've only got 10 minutes left, so just give it a bit of juice and she'll make it through. So, just waiting for the session restart time has been confirmed at 8:52, which is in about 10 seconds' time. We'll be getting underway for the final 10 minutes of running here in Putrajaya.
You compromise here. If you go straight out, you've obviously gained yourself 10-20 seconds of track running, which could be critical in getting one more lap, but you put yourself in a position of being in traffic. So you've always got to be thinking about it and taking the compromises that come with it.
So the green flag is out and the cars are back out onto the circuit, with Karun Chandok leading the way, followed by Matty Brabham. Then it's Lucas Di Grassi, who we're on board with.
I think overnight they changed the pit exit, because it looked really tight in that little kink on the pit exit yesterday.
Okay.
It looks like they've changed it. It's a bit easier, which is good, because they were almost having to cross the white line just to make it through the corner.
And here are the standings at the moment, and you can see Boemi's got 100% of usable power, as has Servia. So, and well, most of them are quite highly charged. So perhaps we're going to see some flying laps coming in now ahead of qualifying, which will take place at 10 o'clock local time, so only an hour or so once this session comes to a conclusion. Da Costa's still got 17%, but he's still in the pit lane, so still in the pit garage, so he won't be going out just yet in that car. As we go on board with Di Grassi, as they all try and find a little bit of space now, as Matty Brabham comes up through turn 9.
Right at the turning point there, there's that change of tarmac.
Of turn 9, which takes them out to the bridge. There is Di Grassi behind his teammate Daniel Abt. And they're all just making their way around, and then presumably will turn up the power and get on it and try and figure out this circuit. As Di Grassi flashes through down towards the final corner, gives himself a little bit of space, and then he'll floor it, get that instant torque going. And out now onto the start-finish straight. We go on board with Di Grassi looking back. And let's see how much. Yep, he's on the full 200. So he's going to start pushing now, Lucas Di Grassi. At the moment, he's only 9th, but that's because he hasn't. Oh, yeah, that's straight on, isn't it?
Yeah, I got a bit locked to rears just where you don't want it there. But as you said, Jack, is at the start of the lap, so you can cruise around and do another one. I wonder how much of that is what we're talking about, is the amount of regeneration available from between 100 and 80% of usable power. I wonder how much of that is there's just struggling with that setup.
Oh wow, that was a big moment for Di Grassi.
Yeah.
Daniel Abt did the same, didn't he, in the sister Abt car in front, but Di Grassi was a bit more spectacular.
Yeah, there's no chance to recover from that one. The Piquet was a bit close to the wall there out of 7.
And Nelson Piquet Jr. currently 6th quickest, 1.3 seconds down on D'Ambrosio, and he's 1.2 seconds down in sector 2. Fastest man in the middle sector, though, is Sam Bird in the Virgin car, so he is looking very, very quick at the moment. The second sector split is just before the turn 9, which takes them out then towards the hairpin. Oh, big lock-up from Nelson Piquet Jr. He manages to get it turned in, nevertheless.
Impressive.
Yeah, it was good stuff from...
Oh, something's broken.
Oh, yeah. So that was less impressive.
What's happened there? He's hit that bump so hard, it's broken. It's part of either the damper or the
Oh, and that's problems as well for Jerome D'Ambrosio. He's gone straight on and hasn't quite, I don't think, hit the wall, but that's at turn 3, and they are all starting to push very hard now, aren't they?
These marshals are brave, aren't they?
Yeah, well, the yellow flags are out, but the committee of marshals has arrived.
If that was them, I'd be getting back behind that barrier.
And the yellow flag's out then. And so
that shows that bump is that big, going into the last corner that is breaking the car, which was always a worry, wasn't it? We talked about it in China, but honestly, it's a massive, massive bump. One of the biggest I've ever seen on a street course, almost Baltimore crossing the train tracks, like.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to avoid that in the race.
So, hello. Some of these will be on full battery power. Oh, there's going to go 3 wide down there into the first
This is not ideal,
corner.
is it? Some of the guys are cruising. I think if you're going to cruise, get offline, get the hell out of the way, and don't cause any problems, because, you know...
Oh, and into the wall there. Didn't quite see who that was. I think it might be a Venturi has gone in at turn 3. We saw them trying to get around, and it's Nick Heidfeld, and that's a big one.
Yeah, that's done a hole. The front wing, left front corner there. I don't think he's got to the floor. So yeah, you were right. People were starting to push, weren't they?
The red flag is out then here in Beijing, in Putrajaya, sorry. And I think that'll be essentially the end of the session with 3 minutes or so to go. Nick Heidfeld has crashed down at turn 3, and it looked as though he was right up behind one of the trolley cars, and it may have been Michaela Cerruti because she was on an outlap, but she seemed to have pulled over to the inside line to get out of the way on the exit of 3, and Heidfeld went in on the entry to 3. So that is going to be a lot of work for the Venturi team, who spent all of yesterday stressing about fixing Nick Heidfeld's car, and they've got it all again today.
Yeah, that car spent a wee bit too much time up against those barriers. They'll fix it, though. That will be fixed for qualifying. They've definitely not that big a job, but it was easy for me to say sitting here.
You're going to go give him a hand then?
Yeah, they probably don't
I'm
want
sorry,
that.
a task has failed.
So there is Jarno Trulli in the Trulli car. Of course, not have to run that car in qualifying because they've got 2, and the session will not restart. We've just had confirmation of that. So Nick Heidfeld ends the session in the barriers and brings the session to an end for everyone else, with Sam Bird quickest on a 1:21.496, and the now iconic shot almost of Nick Heidfeld taking off his helmet. It was flown around the world after the accident in Beijing, and we're getting used to seeing it. There you can see the message from race control: the session will not restart, so Heidfeld can just wander back up the track and back up to the pits. Let's have a look at the replay now. You'll see the Trulli car. Yeah, he's nowhere near, actually. That's just Heidfeld going in too quick.
Yeah, it might have unsighted him, though. It's not a great angle to see from. I'd love to see it from if he had an in-car on there or something, to see if it unsighted him.
And there he is, jogging back to the pits now, and that's it's a brave move in this heat as well to make his way back. But there's the Venturi team.
You know, going back to what we're saying, if people are cruising, they need to get offline, because if the problem is you expect a driver to go one way and they go another, the next thing you're going to have some serious contact with a lot of closing speed. So that needs to be figured out.
Karun Chandok practices the driver change, and just I need to find out. I'm going to speak to some of the drivers and find out how much the driver change played a role, because you have essentially 50 seconds in the garage, so it's not that urgent, the change.
No, it would have struggled for me. I took about 10 minutes to get in the car when I was doing it. But the thing, I think it was Heidfeld and one other went out and sort of did a quick driver change and then stayed right at the minimum speed and gained some track position. So
we have already heard from the Chief Technical Officer of Venturi today. We can hear from him again. Nicholas Modis with Nicky.
Nicholas, we just saw Nick crash at turn 3, so you've got your work cut out to get ready for qualifying.
Yes, correct. So we will see the damage of the car, and we will do our best to repair the car for the race. We'll have the other car maybe for the qualifying. So we still have some works to prepare the car for the race. So we need to see what are the damage and if it can be done for the race. So we'll see how that will be managed with the team. Yeah.
It looked like he took the corner too quickly. Do you think there's a problem with the braking?
We were in a fast lap, so we were supposed to try to make it the fastest as we can. So that could happen. So we'll see with the car, and no trouble with the fact that he tried to go fast on this track.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of frustration for Venturi, but drivers are out there to go fast, and Quick Nick has ended up in the tyre barriers, unfortunately for him. And so at the end of that 1 hour and 5 minute session, Sam Bird is the quickest man of anyone, a 1 minute 21.496, half a second clear of Jerome D'Ambrosio in the Dragon Racing car, Sebastian Buemi third quickest, Oriol Servio fourth, and Nico Prost in fifth, Chandok, Brabham, Montani, Piquet Jr. and Jarno Trulli completing the top 10. And if those times seem a bit spread out, it's because not everyone, especially these guys here on the second timing page, used their full qualifying lap pace. So because we had the red flag for Michele Ceruti and then the red flag for Nick Heidfeld at the end there, not everyone was able to get that lap in.
It'll be a lot closer in qualifying, absolutely, Jack. And yeah, so let's see. But a lot of frustrated drivers out there just now, just not getting that any idea. Some of them will have done a qualifying run, some won't even have done one. So they're going into it a little bit blind.
So the qualifying session will get underway in about an hour's time here in Putrajaya. And here is a look down the pit lane. There is the Mahindra squad, Bruno Senna and Karun Chandok. Bit of segue action as we go past Hopin Tung and Nelson Piquet Jr.'s Team China garage. And as I said, this temporary facility was is Carlos Funes as well, the FIA delegate. And Venturi will be hoping they're on the podium because their faces are right in front of the podium there. Then we've got a big screen, and that'll look funky when we all get all that effect where you see screen on screen on screen. There's Amlin Aguri. Then the Trulli squad, Jarno Trulli and Michele Ceruti's. There's a bit of a gap there, and a 10th place for Jarno Trulli was a pretty good effort from him in a team that haven't quite been on it so far. But again, they were late to the party as well. Drayson Racing initially had that entry, and then they pulled out in order for Trulli to take over. So they were late joining the fray as well, as they've removed Nick Heidfeld's car from the barriers now then. And the left front obviously done, but it doesn't seem to have done too much damage to the rest of the car, does it?
You think left front wing, you become an expert in these things when you end up. I'm sure Nick's had a look at it and came back and said, right, we're going to need a left front corner, we're going to need a front wing, and off we go. Maybe a steering rack too. He might have broken the steering rack with the impact.
There's the bridge overlooking turn 10, the chicane down in the first corner. Sebastian Buemi chatting to his e.dams crew. And we can now hear from Sam Bird, the quickest man in that session, a 121.496 for him. He's talking to Nicky Shields.
Oh, well. Yeah.
Sam Bird, you've been building momentum up this morning through practice and just finished with the fastest lap.
Yeah, it was a good practice session for us. You know, we were able to get through the program that we wanted to get through. We discovered new things, and we worked on quality setup and race strategy. So I'm happy with what we did today. I mean, it's nice to be fastest. So well done to Virgin Racing for giving me the car capable of that. But also, it's very important to have the strategy. So we covered that basis. So I'm happy.
And were you able to use full power in that lap?
Yeah, that lap was full power. I believe everybody that's done a time has done it on full power, so I think that we are in good stead for qualifying.
Excellent. Well, good luck. Because which group are you in?
Group 4. We've got myself, Jaime, the 2 Amlin cars, and Lucas. So tough group, but you know, if we do the job we did this morning, we should be okay.
And what was it actually like to drive out there on track? I mean, to us it looks very bumpy.
It's really bumpy, but a mega circuit. I think Formula E as a championship have done really well so far with Beijing and this track here in Malaysia. They've given us 2 challenging circuits, 2 that really test us as drivers. And yeah, it's bumpy, but it makes it more interesting.
And do you think you got the most out of the circuit in practice?
No, there's way more to come from me yet.
Excellent. Good luck.
Thank you.
He's one of the best at racing drivers speak around, Sam Bird. He seems very happy.
Yeah, he's a happy boy there, but that was a good interview, wasn't it? He told us absolutely nothing of what he's doing because he doesn't want to give anything away. But yeah, he's a happy boy right there. And like he says, though, it's not that important to be fastest. It's nice to be fastest because it shows him what he can.
As the sun comes up and the circuit begins to dry here in Putrajaya, we have finished the free practice session here ahead of qualifying, which will be coming up in about an hour's time, and Sam Bird will be hoping he can end that quickest as well. There is a look down the start-finish straight, a very long start-finish straight, the temporary pit structure there. There's the Ministry of Finance on the right-hand side that overlooks the start-finish line as well, and it really is a spectacular place for a race. The track is very bumpy, but the drivers are loving it. Nick Heidfeld didn't love it though, because he has ended up breaking his Venturi car in the wall. So an entertaining first practice session. Let's have a little look back at the highlights.